My name is Emily, a 33-year-old woman with a passion for neatness and organization. I work as an auditor at a large firm, and my friends often tease me about my obsession with keeping receipts and paying taxes on time. But I believe these little habits are what keep my life running smoothly. Let me tell you how I met my husband, Jake. It was at a party hosted by our mutual friend, Lisa. I remember that evening clearly. I was sipping a glass of wine and catching up with some old college friends when Jake walked in. He was a bit older, carrying himself with a confident stride and a charming smile. He worked as a manager at a food sales company. "Hey, I'm Jake. Do you mind if I join you?" he asked, holding a beer and looking directly at me. "Sure, I'm Emily. Nice to meet you," I replied, smiling back at him. We started talking, and I was surprised by how effortlessly the conversation flowed. We discovered a mutual love for hiking and a shared passion for classic rock music. A few months into our relationship, Jake invited me to his sister Sarah's barbecue. It was my first time meeting his family, and I was a bit nervous. When we arrived, Sarah greeted us warmly, but her 3 kids were a whirlwind of energy, running around and tossing toys everywhere. "Hey Sarah, this is Emily," Jake said, introducing me. "Nice to meet you, Emily. These are my little rascals, Mike, Tom, and Lily," Sarah said, barely holding on to Tom as he wriggled out of her grasp. "Nice to meet you all," I replied, trying to hide my unease. As the evening went on, the kids became wilder, climbing on furniture, throwing food, and yelling at the top of their lungs. I glanced at Jake, hoping he'd say something, but he just smiled and shrugged. "Aren't they just full of energy?" he said, chuckling. I forced a smile. "Yeah, they sure are." As our relationship progressed, Jake and I started discussing the future. He proposed to me during a hike on a beautiful hill overlooking the valley. It was simple and sweet, just the way I liked it. Our wedding was lovely, aside from one little hiccup: Sarah's kids. They were at it again, running around, making a mess, and being loud. Sarah didn't seem to care, and Jake found it amusing. "Look at them. They're having so much fun," Jake said, laughing as he watched them spill drinks and toss food around. "Yeah, but they're also making a huge mess," I replied, trying to keep my irritation in check. "Oh, come on, Em, they're just kids. Let them enjoy," he said, shrugging it off. I didn't want to spoil our special day by arguing, so I let it go, hoping things would improve once we settled into our new life together. After we got married, Jake and I decided to buy a house together. We had been living in a rented apartment, but we wanted a place to call our own. I was really excited about this new chapter in our lives. One evening after work, Jake and I sat down to discuss our finances and how we'd manage the expenses for our new home. "Emily, we need to figure out how we're going to split the costs," Jake said, leaning back on the couch. "Yeah, I've been thinking about that too," I replied. "I can handle the furniture, appliances, and some art pieces. What about you?" "Well, I was thinking I could buy you a new car. I know your old one is giving you trouble," Jake suggested. I was surprised and delighted. "Really? That would be amazing. My car is practically falling apart." "Yeah, I've seen it struggle. It's time you had something reliable," he said with a smile. We started house hunting right away. After a few weeks of searching, we found a beautiful house that we both loved. It was a bit pricey, but we decided it was worth it. Moving in was hectic, but I was excited about decorating our new home. I spent a lot of time selecting furniture and appliances, ensuring everything was high quality and stylish. One Saturday, Jake surprised me with a new car. It was a sleek, shiny sedan, and I was thrilled. "Jake, this is incredible. Thank you so much," I exclaimed, hugging him tightly. "You're welcome, Emily. You deserve it," he said, looking proud of himself. As we settled into our new home, everything seemed to be going well. We both enjoyed our jobs and loved coming back to our cozy house. But as time passed, little things started to bother me. Jake's laid-back attitude, which I once found charming, began to get on my nerves, especially when it came to household chores. "Jake, can you help me with the dishes tonight?" I asked one evening after dinner. "Em, I had a long day at work. Can't we just leave them for tomorrow?" he replied, giving me pleading eyes. "Jake, we can't keep putting things off. I'm tired too, but we need to keep this place clean," I insisted. "Fine, I'll do it," he said, sighing heavily as he got up from the couch. A few months into our marriage, I started worrying because I couldn't get pregnant. It was really stressing me out. I went to the doctor, and he told me to be patient, that it would happen when the time was right. Still, it was hard not to worry. Meanwhile, Jake's sister Sarah, with her 3 kids, was visiting a lot. Sarah lived in a neighboring state, but you'd think she lived next door with how often she was around. Every time she came over, she'd unload all her problems with her husband on me. It was nonstop. During dinner, while we were trying to relax, she'd be at it, talking about her issues. "Emily, you won't believe what John did this time," Sarah would start, rolling her eyes. "Sarah, can we talk about something else for once?" I'd ask, trying to steer the conversation away from her marital drama. "Oh, come on, Emily, I need to vent." "You're the only one who understands," she'd reply, not getting the hint at all. And her kids? They were a nightmare. As soon as they stepped into our house, it was like a circus. They'd run around, fight with each other, throw food, and just be loud. After a long week at work, all I wanted was some peace and quiet, but that was impossible with those kids around. "Guys, can you calm down, please?" I'd say, trying to keep my cool as they tore through the living room. "Why are you always so uptight, Emily?" Sarah would snap at me whenever I tried to get her kids to behave. "They're making a mess, Sarah. I just cleaned the house," I'd respond, feeling my patience wearing thin. "Well, maybe if you had your own kids, you'd understand," she shot back one day, her words hitting me like a punch in the gut. I was stunned by how insensitive she was, especially knowing how much I was struggling with getting pregnant. It felt like a slap in the face, and I couldn't believe Jake didn't say anything to defend me. "Jake, are you going to let her talk to me like that?" I asked, my voice shaking with anger and hurt. "Emily, calm down. You're making a big deal out of nothing," he said, siding with her again. "A big deal out of nothing? She just insulted me in my own home," I shouted, feeling the tears well up. I was so done. I couldn't keep living like this, constantly disrespected in my own home, with my husband always taking his sister's side. It was clear to me that something had to change, and soon. One Saturday, Sarah showed up with her 3 kids. She dumped them on me and said, "Emily, I need a break from parenting. I'm going shopping." I couldn't help but chuckle when she said, "Parenting." The woman barely knew what that meant. "Every time she's here, it's like a zoo." "Fine, Sarah, but you better be quick," I said, already feeling the stress coming on. "Thanks, Emily, you're a lifesaver," she chirped, grabbing her purse and bolting out the door before I could say anything else. Great, I thought, just what I needed. I was in the kitchen, trying to cook dinner. It's a long process and I like things done right, but with those kids running wild, it was impossible to focus. They were yelling, running around, and making a mess. "Guys, can you keep it down?" I shouted from the kitchen, hoping they'd listen for once. Of course they didn't. Suddenly I heard a loud crash. My heart sank. I ran into the living room, and there it was, my grandfather's antique Chinese vase, shattered on the floor. My chest tightened with anger and frustration. What the hell happened here? I screamed, looking at the kids who were now standing still with guilty expressions. "We were just playing," one of them mumbled, not meeting my eyes. "This vase is priceless. It's from my grandfather. Do you have any idea what you've done?" I was livid, shaking with anger. Just then, Jake walked in, looking calm and clueless. "What's going on?" "Emily, your nephews just broke my grandfather's vase. Look at this mess." I pointed at the shattered pieces on the floor. "Calm down, Emily. It's just a vase. We can get it fixed," he said, shrugging like it was no big deal. "Just a vase? This isn't about the vase, Jake. It's about respect. I'm tired of this. Every time Sarah comes over, our house turns into a disaster zone, and you don't care," I shouted, my voice cracking with frustration. Just then, Sarah walked in, bags in hand, looking annoyed. "What's all this yelling about?" "Your kids broke my grandfather's vase, Sarah. Look at this mess." I pointed at the floor, trying to hold back my tears. "Well, maybe you should have kept a better eye on them, Emily," she said, not even bothering to apologize. "Are you kidding me? They're your kids, Sarah. I shouldn't have to watch them." I was furious, my hands shaking with anger. Jake just shook his head, looking annoyed. "You're overreacting, Emily. Just drop it." "Overreacting? I've had enough of this. I'm tired of being treated like I don't matter in my own home," I screamed, the tears finally spilling over. Jake just stood there, silent and cold, while Sarah smirked like she had won some sort of victory. I couldn't take it anymore. I stormed out of the room, feeling a mix of anger, hurt, and betrayal. We'd been dealing with Sarah and her kids' chaotic visits for months, but I had no idea what was coming next. One morning, Jake was sitting at the kitchen table, munching on his toast when he casually dropped a bombshell on me. "Emily, I need to tell you something. Sarah's getting divorced, and she's moving in with us with the kids for a few months," he said like he was just telling me the weather. I almost dropped my coffee. "What? Are you serious? Our house is already a madhouse when they visit for a day. How are we supposed to handle them living here for months?" "She's my sister, Emily. She needs our help. You need to be more understanding," he said, looking at me like I was the one being unreasonable. "Understanding? I've been more than understanding, Jake, but this is too much. Why can't we rent a place for her nearby? I'll even pay for the first month's rent," I suggested, trying to keep my cool. "No, she'll be better off here. Plus, you can help with the kids and keep things clean," he said like it was the most obvious thing in the world. "I'm not a babysitter, Jake. I work too, and I need to relax when I get home," I said, my frustration boiling over. Stop being so selfish, Emily. It's family. They need us, he said, his tone getting sharper. I'm not being selfish, Jake. I'm just asking for a reasonable solution. I'm not going to let my life be turned upside down, I said, feeling my anger bubbling up. Well, they're coming tomorrow evening, so you better get used to the idea, he said, standing up and heading out of the kitchen. I couldn't believe it. I felt completely blindsided and betrayed. The next morning, I woke up early, still fuming from our argument. I got dressed for work and went to grab my car keys, but they were nowhere to be found. When I called Jake, he picked up the phone, sounding way too calm for my liking. I took the car. It's mine, remember? I'm giving it to Sarah so she can use it for the kids. I was stunned into silence for a moment. You're giving my car to Sarah? Are you serious right now? It's not your car, Emily. I paid for it, and she needs it more than you do, he said, his tone matter of fact. That's the last straw, Jake. You've taken everything from me, and I'm done, I said, my voice shaking with anger. What are you talking about? Don't be dramatic, Emily, he said, clearly not getting it. I stood there in the hallway, holding my phone, unable to believe what was happening. It felt like a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. How had things gotten so bad? I picked up the phone and called a moving company. Hi, I need a team to move some furniture and appliances today. It's urgent. The movers arrived a couple of hours later. I showed them around the house, pointing out the items to be moved. Take everything. The beds, sofas, chandeliers, even the faucets in the bathroom. The movers got to work, and soon the house started to look empty. I felt a strange sense of relief watching them carry out each piece of furniture. As the last item was loaded onto the truck, I directed them to my mom's house. Everything goes there. Thanks for the quick work, guys, I said, handing them a tip. With the house now bare, I grabbed my essentials and headed to my mom's place. A few hours later, my phone started buzzing. It was Jake calling repeatedly. I ignored the calls, feeling a mixture of anxiety and empowerment. That evening, there was a loud knock on my mom's door. I opened it to find Jake standing there, looking furious. What the hell, Emily? What did you do? He shouted as he stormed into the living room. I took my stuff, Jake. You took the car, so I took what I bought, I said, keeping my voice calm. This is insane. You stripped the house bare. Where are Sarah and the kids supposed to sleep? He yelled, his face red with anger. That's your problem, Jake. You made this mess, now you deal with it, I replied, crossing my arms. You're a thief, Emily. You stole everything. He shouted, waving his arms around. I didn't steal anything. Here are the receipts, I said, pulling out a folder and showing him the proof of purchase for all the furniture and appliances. He looked through the receipts, his anger shifting to frustration. Fine, Emily, if this is how you want to play it. I'll file for divorce, Jake said. I took a deep breath and handed him a stack of papers. Already done. Here are the divorce papers. Sign them, and we're done. He stared at the papers, his face pale. You're really serious about this, aren't you? Dead serious, Jake. I deserve better than this, I said, feeling a strange sense of calm wash over me. He took a pen from his pocket, signed the papers without another word, and handed them back to me. Fine, Emily, have it your way. I watched as he turned and walked out of my mom's house, the door slamming behind him. I stood there for a moment, feeling a mixture of relief and sadness. It was over, and I knew it was the right decision. That night, I sat down with my mom and talked about everything that had happened. She was supportive and agreed that I had made the right choice. Emily, you've been through a lot. It's time you focused on yourself and your happiness, she said, giving me a comforting hug. Thanks, Mom. I just need some time to figure things out, I replied, feeling a weight lifted off my shoulders. Over the next few days, I started to settle into a new routine. I began organizing my new space at my mom's house and planning my next steps. It was a fresh start, and for the first time in a long time, I felt hopeful about the future. I knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy, but I was ready to face it head-on. I had reclaimed my life, and there was no turning back. After divorcing Jake, we sold our house and split the money. I decided it was time to really set up my new place. My mom's house was great for a bit, but I needed my own space. One afternoon, I was sitting in the kitchen with my mom, scrolling through listings on my laptop. Mom, I think I found a place that looks perfect. It's a small apartment downtown, close to work, I said, showing her the pictures. She looked over my shoulder and smiled. That looks nice, Emily. Have you called the realtor yet? Not yet, but I'm going to do that right now, I said, feeling a bit excited. I dialed the number and waited for the realtor to pick up. After a few rings, a friendly voice answered. Hello, this is Mark. How can I help you? Hi, Mark, my name is Emily. I'm interested in the apartment you have listed downtown. Is it still available? I asked, crossing my fingers. Yes, it's still available. Would you like to schedule a viewing? He replied, sounding hopeful. Absolutely. How about tomorrow afternoon? I suggested, trying to sound calm. That works for me. I'll see you at 3:00 p.m., Mark said before we ended the call. The next day I headed downtown to meet Mark and check out the apartment. When I arrived, he was waiting outside the building, a friendly smile on his face. "Hi Emily, nice to meet you. Let me show you around," he said, shaking my hand. The apartment was small but cozy, just what I needed. It had a nice kitchen, a spacious living room, and a small balcony with a decent view of the city. "This place is perfect, Mark. I'll take it," I said, feeling a sense of relief. After signing the mortgage agreement and getting the keys, I started planning my move. I wanted to make this new space my own, a fresh start. I spent the next few days packing up my things at my mom's house and arranging for movers to help me with the big stuff. On moving day, my mom and a couple of close friends came over to help. As we loaded the last box into the moving truck, I felt a mix of excitement and nervousness about this new chapter in my life. "Emily, this is going to be great for you. A fresh start is just what you need," my mom said, giving me a reassuring hug. "Thanks, Mom. I'm really looking forward to it," I replied, smiling. We drove to my new apartment, and with everyone's help, we had everything unloaded and set up in no time. As I looked around my new place, I felt a sense of accomplishment and peace. It was the beginning of a new chapter, and I was ready for it. That evening, I invited my mom and friends to stay for dinner to celebrate the move. We ordered pizza and sat on the floor, surrounded by boxes and laughter. "Cheers to Emily and her new place," my friend Lisa said, raising her glass of soda. "Thanks, guys. I really appreciate all your help and support," I said, feeling grateful. As the night went on, we talked and laughed, and for the first time in a long time, I felt truly happy and free. After the party, as I sat on my balcony looking out at the city lights, I thought about everything I had been through and how far I had come. I was proud of myself for taking control of my life and making the changes I needed. I heard from some mutual friends that Jake used his share of the money to buy a small apartment. Now he's living there with Sarah and her 3 kids. Jake's working 2 jobs to keep up with the bills, while Sarah still isn't working. They're fighting all the time. One day, out of the blue, Jake called me. I was surprised to see his name pop up on my phone, but I decided to answer, curious about what he had to say. "Hello, Jake. What's up?" I answered, trying to keep my voice neutral. "Emily, please, just hear me out," he started, sounding desperate. "I know I messed up. I'm so sorry for everything. I didn't realize how hard it was for you with Sarah's kids." I couldn't help but laugh a little. "Really, Jake? You're realizing this now, after all this time?" "Yeah, I know it's late, but I'm serious. I've been thinking a lot, and I miss you. I miss us. Can we start over? I'm ready to move into your apartment and make things right," he said, his voice almost pleading. I chuckled, shaking my head in disbelief. "Jake, you've got to be kidding me. You think you can just waltz back into my life like nothing happened?" "Emily, I'm serious. I'll do whatever it takes. I'll even take on more work to make it up to you," he said, sounding more desperate. "Jake, I've moved on. I'm happy now. I'm not looking to go back to that mess," I replied firmly. "Come on, Emily. We can make it work this time. I've changed," he insisted. I sighed, feeling a mix of pity and irritation. "Jake, it's over. You need to focus on your life and your family. I'm not interested in going back to that chaos." "Emily, please, I'm begging you," he said, his voice breaking. "Jake, no. I found peace without you. I'm not giving that up," I said, standing my ground. "Take care, Jake. I hope you find your way." I hung up the phone, feeling a strange mix of relief and closure. It was clear that Jake was struggling, but I couldn't let his problems drag me back into a situation I had worked so hard to escape. Later that day, I met up with Lisa for coffee and told her about the call. "You won't believe who called me today," I said, rolling my eyes. "Who?" Lisa asked, raising an eyebrow. "Jake. He actually begged me to take him back and let him move into my apartment," I said, shaking my head. Lisa laughed, almost spitting out her coffee. "Are you serious? What did you say?" I told him no, of course. "I'm not going back to that mess," I replied, smiling. We spent the rest of the afternoon chatting and laughing, and I realized how far I had come. I had built a new life for myself, one that was peaceful and fulfilling. I wasn't going to let anyone take that away from me. As I walked home, I felt a deep sense of satisfaction and peace. I had finally closed the chapter on that part of my life, and I was ready to move forward with confidence and joy.